Okay, I think we're done now. Jim, you were the chair of the Foreign Operations Subcommittee in the House Appropriations Committee. You're a German Marshall Fellow. You've been working on global issues for a long time, and you also understand deeply how much we have to clean up here at home. We've got Don't Ask, Don't Tell, Defense of Marriage Act, ENDA, Domestic Partner Benefits Obligations Bill. There's a lot Congress is busy with right now. Where's the global stuff fit in? Can it fit in? Are we too preoccupied trying to clean up our own house?
Well, it does. It clearly does fit in. We do have our domestic agenda, and those are things that apply, as you suggested here, like ENDA, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which clearly applies to our own military, to our own non-discrimination, employment non-discrimination laws. But at the global level, we do have a lot of issues there. We have a lot of issues that are encompassed in a lot of regulations. They're embedded in a lot of regulations that make it very difficult or impossible for organizations to work with gay groups, with transgender groups. As we know, there's the prohibition on prostitution, for example. There are all of these things that are in there. And you kind of work around them. I found as chairman of the subcommittee, you kind of do your best to work around those because you can only take on a certain number of battles, and you're generally not going to win those kinds of battles when it's a straight up, straight down kind of thing on that kind of an issue. You're generally not going to win it. So you work around it. You work around it with appropriations. You do certain things there. But there clearly are things that I think that we as a nation need to stand up and be heard on and speak out on. And we can only carry that moral authority to do that in other countries when we're able to do it at home. And we're not doing it at home in the way that we really should be doing. So we got a lot of work to do here before we can carry that moral authority to other countries.
Cary.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple things just in terms of moral authority. I think the moral authority comes from a diversity of voices. The United States is one voice. You've got a country like South Africa, which has stood up strongly and upheld LGBT rights within its constitution, though it has some significant problems around protecting LGBT rights on the ground. You have a country like India, which is now finding ways of reading down and diminishing its sodomy law. So I think there needs, within an international community, there needs to be a diversity of voices, but the United States' voice can't be underestimated. It's extremely important. And then in terms of where does the international stuff fit in, I mentioned $48 billion going into HIV/AIDS programming over the course of the next 5 years from the United States government. And we know that men who have sex with men are 9 times more likely to be HIV positive in parts of Africa, 5 times more likely to be HIV positive in parts of Latin America and Asia. We are deeply, deeply at risk from a public health point of view and a human rights point of view by HIV. But the programs, the way the U.S. government's HIV money has been rolling out in ways that are very homophobic, in ways that prevent broad sexual education from getting to people who need it, in ways that promote abstinence programs as opposed to accessibility of condoms. And these are ways that we have to be having a greater impact on the ways in which our government puts our resources out into the world. And we can influence that programming at the national level through our members of Congress, at state levels through our state representatives, and even at municipal and local levels.
You want to give, as long as you've got the floor, give a couple examples of some of the stuff going out there in the world and concrete ways people in this room can make a difference.
Well, I think some of the best, I mean, you all know this a lot better than I do. You've been doing it, many of you, for years, and my organization, and I think all of us are very, very proud of it. I mean, one of the best examples recently is a letter from members of Congress that was specifically led by Congresswoman Baldwin's office to address the situation currently underway in Uganda, where there's a bill being discussed in Parliament that will basically raise the penalty for consensual homosexual acts from life imprisonment to the death penalty in certain instances. And letters signed by members of Congress going to Secretary of State Clinton demanding that the United States government take action. At the municipal level, last year there was a resolution by the Los Angeles City Council that condemned the murder of gay men and persecution of LGBT in Iraq. The United States has tremendous influence, obviously, in Iraq, and doesn't use it in ways in which LGBT communities can be protected. And then there's also the level of political parties, and not just in the United States, but around the world. The Socialist Party, for example, in Europe, has had tremendous influence on trying to address detentions of gay men and lesbians in countries like Senegal, where socialist parties are in power. So the resolutions passed by city councils, by state assemblies, multiple ways in which people can have a direct impact.